This is not the way I want to do these. The way that I would like to make these, I do not know. I'm not aware of the existence. I've looked for videos of people making shuriken where they don't just cut shuriken out of a piece of plate. And perhaps that's the way they made them, and honestly, it's an effective method. I've seen people, and I now have myself also made an effective shuriken in that manner. So we know that this will work, and so this is what I'm going with, but still, I wish I knew of a better method, and if you know, please do share with me so that I can learn it. It's very possible that this is a traditional-ish method. How I could see it happening is a smith and a striker working together to cut with a top tool from pieces of plate. I could see that. That makes sense. To try to forge this shape is honestly kind of ridiculous. Imagine trying to forge that. So much grind. I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm trying to figure out how one might have forged a shape like this. Because, allow me to explain for just a moment why I see this as a large difficulty. As you strike here, you need to, when you strike here, the force, unless it's absolutely perfect, and even if it is, sometimes maybe it won't be, means it'll be very rare if you do. Force needs to be absolutely directly down this ways, and then exactly this ways, and exactly this ways. It comes out a little bit lopsided. I don't know. Maybe it's just an ish me, but I found that trying to forge this thing out very varied, very inconsistent, not very effective. I ended up wasting more metal than I would have saved if I were to be, if the idea is to save metal. When you cut these out, just like scraps of paper, you're gonna have scraps of metal. Perhaps I could see maybe there's a forging technique that I'm not aware of. Perhaps with the right level of skill and the proper technique, of course. It's a forgeable thing, but I couldn't find any example of that. In fact, the shuriken that I look at, and I looked at some examples of antiquity, of course, I cannot seem to find all that much evidence of that kind of forging. Seems to be made in very similar fashion, cut and ground. Cut close to shape and then ground to the rest. Essentially what we're doing here. Glue these stars onto the metal, and then we will have a template, and then a lot of the rest of the work will be done on the bandsaw to remove all of the excess material, clean it up more from there, and well, there's a lot more left to do after that actually. Let's do it.
The Japanese word shuriken, roughly translated to English, means sword hidden in the hand. Shu meaning hand, ri meaning release, and ken meaning blade. Altogether says shuriken. There are several different types and many different variations of shuriken. These being made here are known as a Hira shuriken or a sanban shuriken. Another common type of shuriken is called the bow shuriken. This is a four-sided steel spike, as opposed to the Hira shuriken, the flat metal disc with sharp 4 points that I am making here. These weapons were used by ninja and samurai alike. Though both used them primarily as distractions, it was the ninja who used poison in attachment to these shuriken. The Hira shuriken would be held in special pockets in the ninja's outfit and would effectively work as a type of body armor. The pockets would typically be in the chest area, helping to prevent fatal blows. Quite often in movies and in video games they show these type of shuriken being used to lethal effect, but that is simply not accurate to their usage. No, the Hira shuriken, this shuriken that I am making here, is really more of a distraction. It does not have the penetrating power to be lethal, unless equipped with poison as a ninja does, but even that's not really instant lethality. No, the Hira shuriken was often used as a setup for another attack. You throw your shuriken, and then while the person is trying to defend against that, you come in with a sword and cut your opponent down. These Hira shuriken could also be used as caltrops. When thrown into the ground, points stick up, and horses or cavalry, they walk across these. A shuriken in the hoof will take that horse out of the fight, and if you're lucky, the horse hits it at a gallop, and the samurai is thrown from his horse and speared by the waiting ninja. So these shuriken aren't really considered to be all that lethal, and that's because they don't have such long points. They're not capable of penetrating deep enough to cause mortal wounds directly. Hira shuriken can be thrown from a distance of up to 30 feet or so, but they were also usable in direct hand-to-hand combat. The sharp edges of the shuriken can make an effective slashing tool against an unarmored bit of person. Or perhaps you're being pursued and you don't want to be. So you turn, you cast your shuriken, you nail the attacker in the face, and now you have your moment to make your escape as your opponent is trying to dig this metal disc out of their eye. Although they were a disposable weapon, these would be often collected up after a battle was done. Everything back then was handmade, and no two shuriken were alike. Neither were any two shuriken makers, and so it could be a useful bit of intel for the winning army as to who was supplying their enemies. As I stated earlier, ninja would sometimes cover their shuriken in potent poisons, so that way if it did injure an enemy, it would eventually kill them. The poison masters of the ninja clans usually took advantage of natural poisons like aconite, or they would bury the tips in feces, causing not only bacterial infection from the feces, but also when the iron rusts due to the water content, it would also cause them to contract tetanus. Another common type of sanban or hira shuriken is called the fire wheel shuriken, which involves wrapping a pitch-soaked cloth around the shuriken and lighting it on fire. It was then thrown onto anything flammable, such as huts, wagons, or enemy tents. This could be used to disorient the enemy, causing chaos amongst the ranks in large-scale battles. Another method of using these shuriken involves wrapping the shuriken in a poison-soaked cloth and then throwing it towards the enemy. This would emit acrid, poisonous smoke, which disoriented and weakened the enemy, and when used in multitude by many ninja, this method is very effective at weakening large numbers of troops. Think of it almost like an ancient form of pepper spray. Not unlike much of antiquity, the shuriken is kind of illegal in a lot of places. They are illegal to possess or carry in some countries, such as Belgium, the Netherlands, Canada, where I am. They are illegal to carry around. They are illegal in Germany, the United Kingdom. I mean, that's not surprising. Everything's illegal in the United Kingdom, isn't it? But it's also illegal in some states, California, Indiana, and New York, for example. But if you're looking for something a little bit more legal to carry around with you than a four-pointed sharp shuriken, perhaps the much more lethal, yet far more legal, bow shuriken would be something you'd be interested in. A bow shuriken is a throwing weapon consisting of a straight iron or steel spike, usually four-sided, but sometimes round or octagonal in section. Some examples have points on both ends, though the majority of them have a flatter end on the rear and a pointy end at the tip. These precise metal spikes range in length from 12 to 21 centimeters long, and they could weigh as little as 35 or up to as much as 150 grams. That's about 1 to 5 ounces for those of you not on the metric system. There are many different types of bow shuriken. There's the nail form, the needle form, the knife form, the spear form, the pine needle form, the piercing tool form, and the utility tool form, as well as a plate metal form. Perhaps one day I'll do a video on each individual type of shuriken. Perhaps it would be interesting to build a whole bunch of different types of shuriken and then compare and contrast their uses and how effective they are. I touch on that a little bit at the end of this video, where I throw some shuriken at some ice targets. You'll see. The bow shuriken is thrown in a number of ways: the overhead, the underarm, the sideways, and the reversal. But in each case, the throw involves the blade sliding out of the hand through the fingers in a smooth, controlled flight, not tumbling end over end. That being said, of course, you can absolutely throw the bow shuriken end over end. This would be a less lethal way to throw the bow shuriken. It's all to do with lines of force. You want that point driving directly into your target with all of the mass of the rest of the shuriken behind it. If it's tumbling, it's more likely to hit and bounce off, cause a glancing wound, as where if it's thrown straight like a spear with all the force behind it, it has penetrative power and will kill. A bow shuriken that lands in your chest is going to cause a, I believe they call it a sucking chest wound, should it impale your lung. The no-spin method of throwing a bow shuriken also translates very well into throwing of knives. Hairpins and chopsticks can also be thrown in much a similar way. That being said, so can pens and pencils. They also make fun holes in your walls, so don't throw them at your walls unless you want to fix holes in your walls. Ask me how I know. The origins of the bow shuriken in Japan are still unclear despite continuing research. And this is partly because shuriken jutsu was a secret art, and also due to the fact that throughout early Japanese history, there were many independent exponents of the skill of throwing long, thin objects. So the earliest known reference to a school teaching shuriken jutsu is, and I'm going to butcher the pronunciation of this, Ganritsu Ryu, active during the 17th century. This school utilized a long, thin implement with a bulbous head, thought to be derived from the arrow. Surviving examples of the blade used by this school appear to combine the arrow's shape with that of the needle traditionally used in Japanese leatherwork and armor manufacture. Of the two, I think I prefer making bow shuriken to these Hira shuriken. I like the amount of forging that is involved in the bow shuriken. There's very little grinding involved, and grinding is kind of tedious and requires belts and lots of noise, and I don't get to swing a hammer as much. And it's just not as much fun to make these shuriken as it is to make bow shuriken, but my goodness, do these shuriken ever look good once they're done. And they are incredibly fun to throw. That being said, if I had one and only one shuriken that I could ever use, it would be the bow shuriken. The ability to have instant lethality, I think, is something that cannot be understated. You have the ability to poison the tips of bow shuriken as well. You can tie things to bow shuriken as well. Bow shuriken are also far more useful in hand-to-hand combat. Use them as you would a stabbing weapon or an overhand thrust. And while you can use the Hira shuriken to cut and slash and stab with, it just is not nearly as effective as the bow shuriken is. Like, if I had the choice of which one I would want to get hit with, bow shuriken or Hira shuriken, I will definitely take a blow from a Hira shuriken, because a bow shuriken could kill you. Hira can too if you poison the tips. I know, but come on. I'd rather not get a spike through the heart. Not gonna fight very long with that in you.